Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. Wouldn't it be great to get a free handout? Well, I'm sorry, we don't have any of those, but turns out you can just as easily borrow your kids' future money and spend it now, which is pretty much the same thing as a free handout. But turns out our kids have no money, or at least they will have no money. So perhaps we need to borrow money from our grandkids' future money, or should I say our future grandkids' future money. That will be easiest for listeners who don't have grandkids yet. You won't have to think about their smiling faces crying as they live in poverty and squalor and horrid destitution, pining for the days when their money wasn't already spent by a previous generation of self-centered blokes looking to enrich themselves on a free handout. But don't think about that, or them, or anything. Just take the free handout while it lasts. Today we're talking executive orders, debt ceiling, universal basic income, baby bonus, DEI, redistribution of wealth, and more. To get in touch, email us at hello@twostewards.ca. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but it is valuable for listening amusement purposes. And now, free money, everyone.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Two Stewards Show. If you're coming back or if it's your first time, welcome. My name's Mark. I'm here with Brent.
Hi, Mark.
How are you, Brent?
I'm good.
Good, yeah? You feeling good on day, what is it, day 2 of...
I'm feeling like maybe I should be an American, as not a Canadian. If I was an American, I'd have a lot more certainty about my future than if I was a Canadian right now.
Yeah, that is one thing that is for sure. So we should, we can't ignore it. We should talk about what's happening in the States and how it's going to affect Canada, insofar as we can see. But I mean, there's a ton of news, right? There have been a ton of executive orders that Trump has written. I mean, obviously they were all prepared, in the months leading up to this, but he's just sat down and written a whole bunch, and a lot of them have countermanded previous executive orders. He ran
his pen dry. He's on to pen number 2.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe we'll run down and just give the highlights of a lot of these orders, and then we can talk about what's going to happen to poor little Canada in the meantime, and our response or lack thereof. So one of the big ones is around energy. Basically, they just said gloves off when it comes to energy. No more Environmental Protection Agency nonsense. They can't block us from digging or drilling or mining or whatever, right? So they did also mention rare earth minerals. They want to boost production of those. But, especially oil exploration, coal as well. Coal's not off the table. So they really want to...
Isn't that going to be bad for the environment, Mark?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, Brent. So they have... they pulled out of a whole bunch of stuff. But essentially, U.S. has pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords. And basically any climate accord, any global climate agreement since 1992, anything that's been signed since then, they're like, no, we're out. We're done. It's America first. And, one of the regulations in one of the memos basically states that when making regulations or considering rules, the primary interest has to be that of the American people, right? It has to separately state what is the sort of external or global benefit, but then also what is the benefit to the American people. So essentially they can look at it and say okay, this might be, this means we won't reach our climate goals for whatever accord, but it's good for the American people, so let's do it. And so it looks like there's a lot of regulation that's going to be either cut or just made redundant, which, we've been talking about that here forever in Canada, right? Red tape. What was it? Regulation is the arthritis of democracy. I think that was Landon Wilkinson said that.
Yeah.
Which I love that quote, and it's so true. So, Trump has effectively defanged a lot of agencies. And this is a whole other, if you're into this kind of thing, that's a whole other topic, right? The amount of power that agencies have versus the actual government. How the government has ceded authority to external, non-elected agencies, and how that's going to change, right? There was that court case, the can't remember, Chevron, I think is the ruling, somebody versus Chevron or Chevron versus somebody, but where they basically said, like, hold on, these agencies have too much power, and we're not just going to take their word for it anymore. Because the courts, the Supreme Court's position for a long time was, if one of these agencies makes a determination, then it's not for the court to say. Which, like, you know, in the history and
we got to start an agency, man. Like, or not anymore.
No, not anymore. But no, in the history and the sort of the founding of the states, that was never the intent.
Yeah.
The intent was, if we're going to pass a rule or make a regulation, Congress has to do that, and then go to the Senate as well for approval. But yeah, that's for the legislative body. But they've essentially got a second legislative body, which is all these different agencies. Like I mentioned, Environmental Protection Agency, and like there's tons of them, right? So essentially, they're kind of setting the precedent for like America first, which I'd be very excited if I was American, and like, you know, that's it. If this rule is bad for Americans, and that's in one of the memos as well, that's essentially what they're saying. If there are rules and they're bad for Americans, no more rules. And if you're in one of these agencies or any department of the government and you don't like a rule, or you think that like a rule should be gotten rid of, you give us a good case for it, and we will back you 100%. We're going to get the Department of Justice, lawyers, everybody to be on your side and get rid of these stupid rules. So, and Trump has stated he wants cheap oil.
Drill, baby, drill.
Exactly. So, I mean, let's go through a few other ones. Then we talk about,
the energy thing, like it's a national emergency, is what they're like.
Yeah, he declared a national energy emergency.
Yeah, which, like, energy, what is Safety always calls it, like the source of human flourishing, because if you don't. Yeah, like people, I think energy consumption gets a bad rap because it's like, well, that's just wasteful, right? Like if you're consuming energy, like shouldn't you find ways to reduce your energy consumption? Yeah. And I think the case can be made that no, like the more energy you consume, actually the higher your standard of living, and the more people you raise out of poverty, like the more people flourish. And so I would kind of support national energy emergency. Drill, baby, drill.
We need the same thing in Canada. And the nice thing is
we have energy.
Oh, we have tons. Yeah, so much. But we have a blueprint now.
Yeah.
Right? So like there's a lot of things going on.
You got your list.
No, but I'm saying there's a lot of things going on with these rules, but there's second order effects. And we have seen that already. You call it the Trump effect, I guess, with companies dropping their DEI departments, right? Yeah. Facebook, I can't remember if we talked about this or if I was just ranting at a group of strangers at a bus stop or something, but
similar.
Same idea.
Sometimes I drive down the road and I see you with your leather jacket. And like, I know that guy. Well, actually, I don't know that guy.
I'm like, Brent, hey. Brent never says hi.
Wearing my avocado toast shirt.
No, so Meta, the parent group of Facebook, like Zuckerberg.
That guy's got a big yacht.
Don't they all?
Well, like he supports climate, whatever nonsense. But anyways,
no, I don't think he does anymore.
Okay, not anymore.
Well, you're seeing this about face from all these large companies. And you're like, okay, so you guys never actually believed in any of this. You did it because
now they can drive their yachts in public. That's what you're saying. All the docking fees are just like, all the guys who give it docking fees are just getting totally killed by this.
That's right. I mean, but the guys who sell yacht gas.
Yeah, there you go.
What do they use? Diesel?
Wind power.
Oh, yeah, wind. Yeah, the world's first wind-powered, there was something where people were like, there's an innovative new way to power ships, and we're going to harness the energy of wind.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, it's called sails.
Yeah.
That's how we did it for thousands of years.
Vikings.
But yeah, no, congratulations. That's a great new idea. Yeah, maroons. Anyways, no. Facebook said, or Meta, like our DEI department, like gone. Any hiring policies that restrict merit-based hiring, done. Yeah, that was something. So that's the first of many, I'm sure. There's a lot of banks that have been pulling out of, even in Canada.
Did they give those departments like a gold sticker or something at least? It's like, and to see you off.
To give them a safe space to... well, and so, I mean, Trump has done the same thing, right? He's basically said, like, okay, there's two genders, male and female, and, like, no more of this stuff. We're not even going to debate anybody, which is, it's kind of nice because people are still trying to debate this, and most people now are just like, no, we're not even talking about this because it's not an issue. It's crazy. It's a mental health issue, yes, but not, right? All the trans ideology. So it's falling on deaf ears. But yeah, he's basically said any federal department, no, like nothing to do with trans ideology, right? Yeah. There's men or women. If you have federal government identification, it's going to state the sex you were given at birth, like how you were born.
Yeah, what it says, it is a policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female, on official documents. So it's like, pick one, I guess.
How can I pick? How can you pick just one?
Well, it also said these sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality.
Yeah,
that's pretty firm. I don't know.
That is a firm.
What did Canada say in response?
I don't know. We're too busy crying.
Oh, okay.
I could tell you what a lot of other people said in response, but again, I think we've turned the corner because now it's the government of the United States, right, who has set the tone for so much of this stuff. And I guess there's two options if you're a person who's on the fence or doesn't really think about things. If your government says, like, you know, the sky is green.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you can be like, no, dummies, the sky's it's blue, or at least we see it as blue, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or you could be like, well, maybe it is because the government said it is, or you enthusiastically adopt it and be like, yes, the sky is green because that's what I want it to be, and now the government's saying it is. So
yeah, that reminds me of something else that is green that the government says is real, which is money. This is real.
Oh man, like, we probably won't even get into that. But I mean, there's a lot to be talked about economically as well, just on monetary policy. But we'll see if we get there.
This is a show about stewardship. We have to get there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but this is stewardship of a country, of a culture,
of the world.
Well, and essentially of the world, right? They're setting. They're setting the example, right? Well, the next 4 years, the next lot of years, maybe, right? So a lot of the, we don't understand all the effects of these pulling out of the climate agreements, but essentially what they are mechanisms for wealth redistribution, right? It was never about climate, and the globalist puppet masters, as we like to call them, are going to find different ways to try and redistribute wealth, right? That's always been the game, is redistribute wealth, or one of the parts of the game anyways, right? And the global climate crisis, whatever you want to call it, now that there's 5 inches of snow on the beaches in Florida and New Orleans, but I guess... Well, yeah, we go from global warming to global climate change, I guess.
Yeah. Crisis.
Oh, yeah, it's always a crisis. So, okay, Trump killed the Greenhouse Gas Committee. This was a committee of the Environmental Protection Agency. It produced a lot of statistics that...
a lot of hot air.
Dad joke of the day. A lot of statistics that countries and committees and people have used to prove their point around climate change. So Trump just said, like, that committee's gone. Like,
we're recording on a USB stick right now?
Yeah, why?
Okay, good. Just making sure.
I would never forget to hit record.
You would never forget to do all the we've recorded so many episodes over again.
Yeah. Well, so what are we at? 101 or something like that, but we've actually probably, done 200. There's moments of panic. Was that one of those, like, did I leave the stove on moment?
Yeah.
You're starting to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting old.
That reminds me, did I leave the stove on? I think it's okay. Anyway, so Greenhouse Gas Committee, just gone. Like stroke of a pen, right? Stroke of pen number 2, whatever it was, gone. So it's taken a wind at a lot of sales of people who relied on this for their false statistics.
Yeah.
But anyway, so all these handouts to a lot of third world countries, gone, right? So it's like, if you want to foster development in the third world, you got to figure out another way to do it.
Yeah.
And maybe not just like give them lots of money, because where does that money go? It goes into the coffers of corrupt governments, usually, or politicians, or just into stupid initiatives, right? Like the effects of gender diversity on climate change. There's studies that Canada is funding, right? In Congo and all these other places, right? And you're like, how is this? If it's our business to make somebody's life better in the Congo, okay, we can debate that point. Yeah. But if we determine that it is, like, what is the most effective way to do it? To go and lecture some tribesmen about, I'm not saying they're all tribesmen, but I
guess technically you could say a lecture is education, and education is a valuable thing, but
well,
it depends on what you're lecturing them on, I guess.
So we talk about combating racism, right?
Yeah.
Well, is this not just white superiority? Because essentially, we're coming from where, we're going to tell you, the poor, dumb, racialized person, like, how you actually should treat women, because that will make an effect on climate change. I'm like, what are they? Do we need to run campaigns in third world countries to tell them not to poop on the beach? Like, somebody should, but that's not for us to say.
Yeah.
And so Trump has, he's also put a 90-day pause on foreign aid, like all foreign aid. And not only that, he said, okay, 90-day pause. And in those 90 days, everybody who's in charge of this stuff, you need to give me a good argument. Like, we're going to kill it unless you prove why this is a good idea. So there's a huge thing as well, right? Like,
I feel like unemployment is going to spike
in certain
things. Yeah. Well, DEI and
yeah. I mean, you always talk about reality, Brent, and like reality is going to hit hard for a lot of these people. If you imagine you're 30 years old, so you went through the education system.
Yeah. And
it's hard for me to imagine, Brent. It was so long ago.
I was going to say, like, pretty good imagination. I could do that pretty well.
You went, you did your high school and you were indoctrinated into the ways of the woke. Yeah. And then you went to university.
30-year-olds, I feel like, would just probably skirt that.
No. This is, no.
Okay.
Oh, no, my son. Listen to your wise old compadre. No, and so you did a college, a university degree in something, woke politics, DEI.
Yeah.
Like they have these videos of the graduates saying like what their degree was, right? And they're all proud and saying it's like, international justice with a side of social basket weaving and pink hair dyeing, right? Like all these useless things.
Yeah.
You have like a lot of people who work in government and agencies who are unemployable. Like they're useless, right? Maybe they worked at Starbucks for a bit and they did all these videos crying about how this was the hardest job in the world, literally, ever.
Seriously.
And people don't understand. And, I'm not saying it's not a hard, demanding job, but it ain't that. But no, you have like
name pronunciation,
a huge part of a young generation who have no skills other than complaining and tearing things down, right? No useful skills. And they're all going to be unemployed in the States, right? Because as, some states they're going to fight back, like California and a lot of these other states. But for a bunch of more either middle ground or conservative leaning states,
Yeah.
they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, this is
And they're
where
emboldened.
reality kicks in, right? If California says, no, we'll hire all the DEIs, like wait 20 years and see what your state becomes. Like,
Well, I mean, you have to wonder about attitudes in California now that some very liberal, white, rich areas have completely burned to the ground because of ridiculous, dumb, incompetent management by governments and agent like fire departments. And I think we played that last time, right? Did we play that clip of the
I don't think so, but
the obese lesbian firefighter saying like it's so important that, you know, when we pull up to a call that people see someone that they can relate to.
yeah,
And you're like,
so comforting.
I could just imagine, like,
I'm on fire.
I'm on fire in the corner, you know, a beam smacked my head so I can't get up. And I see like a big burly white dude barreling in, like, I'm going to save you, sir. I'm like, no. Please send in the, you know, the obese woman in a wheelchair because I would feel more comfortable with like,
Yeah.
but it's so, I mean, we make fun because like, what else can you do? You can laugh or you can cry because it's so sad. far from reality. But like, this is a bit of a dose of reality. Like, I feel for the people who lost their homes, especially because most of them didn't have insurance. Because the insurance companies even realized like what you guys are doing here is not sustainable. And like your forestry management practices, your just everything. California is just and we're seeing this, right? All these companies pulling out of California because it ain't safe.
So what happened when Biden came in? Did he do the same thing, but, you know, establish all these policies, or like
a lot of them
generic been happening over the last 4 years?
Well, I mean, you have. I'm assuming there's a lot of Obama era stuff as well that's being overturned, right? Trump didn't come in this hard the first time. He came in, he was like, hey, we're going to, you know, he's talked about draining the swamp and doing all this stuff, but he was going to work with existing frameworks, legislators, agencies, all that stuff. And like, they stonewalled him. They stymied him at every turn. And so now he's just like, no, it's done. I have a mandate from the people. I got a majority. And like, here's all my picks. If you look at all his picks for heads of departments and stuff, right? They all lean the same way, and they're all just speaking truth now. Like, can you imagine 6 months ago for someone to say there's two genders? Like,
whoa,
you know, what the media, what everybody would be saying. But now people are like, no, this is the official policy of the U.S. government, and good. I'm not afraid to say it now, right?
Yeah.
There have been people speaking up. I'm not saying there weren't. But it's so
just
hard.
Like, how can people run a business off of non-merit-based hiring? Like,
I mean, you could be like Boeing and all your planes start to crash.
yeah,
That's an example.
well, that's a
like
reality
NASA.
check right there.
Yeah. Like they stopped any merit-based hiring. They outsourced a lot of their engineering to India. Nothing against it. If you have good people there, good. But I don't think they were the best engineers at $9 an hour, right?
The cheapest. All right.
But yeah, you've seen the decline of a company like Boeing, like NASA too, right? Their big focus is on DEI. So many big companies
That haven't done anything.
and government agencies, they're the leaders of these agencies, right? The head of the Coast Guard just got turfed, and her goal was like diversity and DEI, essentially. But that was the mantra of all these people, right? That's been the religion for 4 years. Right? It started under Obama, had a bit of a headwind under Trump. And I mean, I shouldn't say it started under Obama. We've kind of traced the roots of this back further, but really visibly speaking, right?
Yeah.
And it's been more in vogue in other parts of the world. You know, for longer, you can look at Europe, for example, right? But when America does something, then the world listens because they have the global reserve currency, right? The WHO, they were by far the largest funder of that. Although I was surprised looking at the numbers. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was also like maybe in fourth place or something, but like a huge amount of funding to the WHO. You're just like, interesting. Is it really just philanthropic or like what's the... Anyways, that's another rabbit hole we don't have to go down. One of the other ones,
the WHO, we pulled out of that, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, did I not mention that?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, like World Health Organization. Like that seems seems kind of bad, isn't it?
Well, it sounds
providing
good.
health
Like
to the world.
organization is very good in your life, and health is good. And to do health and organization in the world, I feel like that's a good thing. Huh?
Well, I think the problem is they weren't doing any. The world part was right, but I don't think they were very organized, and they weren't providing health. I mean, if providing abortion around the globe is important to you, sure, that's
pull out the funding.
Yeah, that's good. But no. So they pulled out of the WHO. Like these are, like they're not trivial organizations. Like
So my question is, what would that organization do in retaliation? Like cease to exist, or would they just like?
Well, the U.S. was a huge driver of it, right? If you have the U.S. doing, I think it was 1.2 billion or something of funding, and then the Gates were 800 million or something. Like that's, I don't know, 2/3 of the budget. So what are other countries going to do? Like, is China going to keep funding it?
Yeah.
Like, why? Right? It's just a way to cooperate with other governments. And if those governments aren't interested, and if they're not, because for 4 years, right, the U.S. government has been pushing insanely woke agendas on the rest of the world. So if they're now out of a lot of these organizations, especially the climate stuff, right, like I think that's just going to fall apart, because any of the smaller part, like let's say Europe aside, because they're still nuts. But any like China and
just blanket statement, except for that one guy we had on our podcast.
Yeah, no, he was
Jobst.
Yeah, there's one or two people.
Clearly not nuts. He's a very brilliant man.
I mean, maybe a little touch. I think to be that smart, you have to be a little bit nuts. Yeah. But and we can say that now, right? I think we're okay to say that now. These words. I
don't know. Trump might pardon you or Biden might pardon you. I don't know. Biden seems to be pardoning everybody in advance for what you did or will do.
Oh man.
Can you even do that? Please forgive my sins in advance of what I'm going to do, like that. Anyways, that's a different.
I mean, we'll talk about the pardons as well, because that's people are losing their mind over Trump doing some pardons too. But okay, so energy, we talked about that, the global climate stuff. So I mean, this is all like, it's so hard to see the second and third order effects of a lot of this, right?
Well, it takes time.
Yeah, it will. I mean, I wish I was smarter and I could figure out like, hey, this is what's going to happen, and then so let's invest over in this area. But I ain't. So I mean, one of the things I can say is like Canadian energy. We've been beating that drum for a while, and so it's a go ahead for Trump. Like, let's jump on the bandwagon, guys. And either, if you don't want to get in bed with the states and follow them, like then let's send oil and gas to the rest of the world who have been asking for it. And we've said, no, we couldn't possibly do that, right? We've even seen some Indian chiefs, Aboriginal chiefs, now rethinking their stance on pipelines, where I think it was Chief Phillips, he's a big one out west, was like, no, we could never put a pipe through these sacred lands. And I was like, maybe they're not so sacred. Maybe we could do a little pipe or a big pipe, because like you see the end of the line.
Yeah.
Like if the oil that you're sending out can't just go through Alberta to the States because there's huge tariffs, like what do you do? We're kind of now there's no oil flowing. So or it's just not economically feasible. So, and we put ourselves in this position, right? We could have had pipelines and refineries built in the last however many years, 9-10 years, to feed the rest of the world, so that if, in this case, Trump said 25% tariffs, we'd just be like, okay, we'll just divert our oil elsewhere. And then that's like, now we have the leverage back to where the States is like, oh, we actually need Canadian oil.
Yeah.
Because like we need it until we establish our own energy supremacy or whatever. So I mean, we've shot ourselves in the foot so much. But that's oil. WHO, we talked about the two genders, defense. And I mean, this is the same for a lot of departments, right? They're essentially putting in kind of no nonsense people who agree with Trump on a lot of these issues. Like, there's two genders, so let's get rid of all the woke nonsense. You're going to cut it all out. What was the root and Root and branch. That's from Lord of the Rings.
Now you're making stuff up.
Yeah. So tons. And what does that mean for Canada? We talked about tariffs, right? And so initially 25% tariffs, and then they're like, oh, okay, maybe not, no tariffs.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
And then it changed back to, there's going to be tariffs again, right? But you have Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, who's actually engaging in diplomacy, right? I was saying to this before the show,
how clever.
Yeah.
Isn't that her job?
Well,
part of her job anyway.
Is it her job as a premier of a country? Like, I think
country.
You can make, maybe the country of Alberta.
Yeah.
No, as the premier of a province, is it her job to go and like defend Canada in the States? Like, probably defend Alberta or pursue their interests? Yeah, for sure. Because we have no effective negotiator.
Yeah.
We have a lame, he's been lame for a while, but now we really have a lame duck prime minister because there's a good chance he will be replaced. I'm not saying 100% chance, by the way, but it's a good chance he'll be replaced by Mark Carney. But until that point, we don't have like a clear strategy other than, Trudeau will have some press conferences and Jolie will say some things, but they're like, it's not the same as like you got Trump and he's sitting there across the table and he's like, okay, we're going to let's talk, let's duke it out. And then you don't have another person that you can sit there and be like, this is the representative of Canada and I have authority and we're going to work this out. We just don't have that, right?
Yeah.
We have some feeble, limp-wristed actors at the table shouting things. But you have Danielle Smith
and
down
we have
there.
Kevin O'Leary. also shouting things.
Yeah, he's that windbag is advocating for the 51st state nonsense. Which I can't believe people buy into that, right? It's clearly just a ploy and a tactic by Trump. And then you got people like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like, come on, guys, have a little bit of pride in yourselves. We can turn things around here and we're not going to be the 51st state, right? Like, don't confuse your hatred for a politician or what he's tried to make this country into for your hatred for your country, right? Be patriotic. There's solutions. But anyways, yeah,
that's
Danielle
the,
Smith is
inner libertarian coming out.
No, not even. Like a libertarian, I would say would be less nationalistic, right, and more individualistic.
So you're inner libertarian. Like,
yeah,
everyone be patriotic.
Yeah, no, that's more of that's a nationalistic approach. Like, let's band together for the good of the country. Now, there's a fine line there. But anyways, the point is Danielle Smith is actually out there doing something. And so that's what I was saying. Like, do we even have international diplomacy anymore? We have all these global committees and groups and so forth where people can go and like show off their fancy socks. And we all have sort of the same agenda and the same ideas that are advanced by Klaus Schwab or whoever happens to be in charge, right? So they're essentially downloading the information and the agendas to these world leaders who are just doing obeisance at the knees of their masters and working towards the same goal, which is different than I've got a country and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that my country prospers. And if that's at the expense of other countries, like, so be it. This is risk. It's not military conquest, but I don't know if there's another board game that is the same thing. But like, that's the idea, right? You have diplomats who go out and build relationships and gather intelligence and do sometimes it's a little nefarious, whatever that may be, but do everything to advance their country and the interests of their country. And it's so shocking for us to see somebody out and out saying, like, this is what I want to do, America first. It's like, I thought it was the world first. I thought we were all equal and it was all wonderful. And we're trying to, we're going to take all the money that the States has and give it to the rest of the world and, the substitute Canada for the States.
Yeah.
And what happened? And, not saying that we shouldn't care and that we shouldn't have international aid where we can. But we talk about the fiat dollar, about the suspension of reality. Like, it is not, I don't think it's good charity to take money that you don't have and that you will have to pay for later on and give that to people who have nothing, right? Like I don't know, if you have no money, is it smart for you to take money out of your credit card? And you're struggling, let's say, right? You take money out of your credit card that you really don't have a way to pay back and give it to somebody who's homeless.
Yeah, I guess if I could increase the debt ceiling, then it wouldn't really matter. I don't know if that's a different conversation.
Well, I mean, that's part of the same one. Like, what is reality? And yeah, we can just increase the debt ceiling and it's fine, right? I can just increase the limit on my credit card and I'll never have to pay it back. And that's,
Well, because the debt ceiling is a big thing right now, right? What did the outgoing Yellen sent in a letter?
Yeah.
Saying like, sorry guys,
by the way,
see
guys,
you later.
It's a huge mess. I don't know what you're going to do.
Have they ever decreased the debt ceiling?
No.
Will they ever decrease the debt?
No, can't. Mathematically can't.
Yeah. So then is this all political theater? They're like, okay, we have a debt ceiling. We're hitting it and we're going to have to raise it. No, we can't raise it. That's crazy. Last minute. All right, let's raise it.
I mean, that's politics, right?
Yeah.
It happens every year in the States. And there's always, it's usually the Republicans who are like, no, that's not fiscally responsible. And they bang the table and make arguments till everybody kind of gets tired of it. And then they increase the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know. Are we going to see the end of that? Maybe. There was recently a bill that was supposed to be passed where they eventually cut out, I can't even remember the bill, but it was like every bill that hits the floor of Congress in the States is an omnibus bill, right? So it means that, okay, we want to do this one thing. So that could be like a 2-page document, right? But, well, in order to do that, like, hey, Brent, Senator from Iowa, what do you think? And you're like, well, okay, as long as I get, funding for this project in Iowa. And then like the next guy from Ohio is like, yeah, okay, but we need funding for my pet project, right? So these bills end up being 1,000 pages. Nobody can read them. And I think that's another one of the directives from Trump is that like all these bills, they have to be a certain size so that people can actually read them and prepare for them. And it just kind of makes sense, right? And there was AI. One recently.
They can't use AI to get the Coles notes.
You could argue that, having politicians is a form of artificial intelligence. It's not real intelligence, and it will never.
Oh man, we are never going anywhere with this podcast.
Not with politicians, anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the original AI, right?
Yeah.
Parliament Hill. Anyways, there was an example of a bill that they cut way back and cut out all the nonsense and like, okay, let's just actually pass the thing we wanted to pass. And so, I mean, that hopefully because it happens in Canada as well. We do the same thing, right? Especially with budgets. And, they're like, well, if you don't want to pass the budget, then this is always the argument, right? When they're like, well, the Conservatives don't care about children, right? Because they have a bill that's about like school lunches or something, but then there's a million other things in there that are reckless spending. And, the opposition will say like, no, it's not a good idea. Even a carbon tax, all this stuff. And then you just say like, well, obviously they don't care about the children. And don't you? What about the children? Nobody cares about the children. And it's not about the children at all.
Yeah. More spending.
Oh, man.
Well, the one thing, they are projecting higher amounts of interest costs. So, like, if anything, they are projecting something that I actually think will happen. I don't know.
In the States, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because what Yellen did as well, like, thank you so much, Janet Yellen, as the head of Treasury, was she did most of the bonds that they put out were very short-term bonds now. There wasn't like a good usually you do a mix, right? We'll do like 6 month, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year, 30 year.
So they don't all mature at the exact same time.
Which is the problem they're going to have this year, right? And so that just compounds the debt ceiling thing even more. All these low interest short-term loans are going to mature, and then there's going to be higher interest.
The debt ceiling is just this invisible barrier that exists due to systemic biases and discrimination. And they usually favor
glass?
a particular group, yeah. Often white men.
Yes. Oh, man. So, I mean, yeah, that. We could probably do a whole nother episode on the debt ceiling and what happens there. But I think essentially there's going to be political theater and it'll get raised. Right. In the meantime, they have what's called the Treasury General Account, TGA, which is already kind of low. So this is essentially what the government has in the bank. It's their bank
compared
account.
to my bank account, it's not low. 650 billion.
It's 650 billion made up dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, yours are based on made up things, but they actually represent work you've done.
Yeah. Okay.
So, $2 real dollars in your bank account based on Brent's labor is probably worth 650 billion
of made
up ones. Yeah. So they're going to start drawing that down. But like once that's gone, there is,
I was looking this up. They call it debt ceiling brinkmanship.
yes.
So you're going up to the brink, I guess, of the debt ceiling. And the closer we go to, we're coming to the end of all of our money. They say that's tied to negative economic impacts. So,
like what? Like we don't pay anybody?
This is a genius article.
Well, it's in economic terms, but at the end of the day, you're out of money and it's you got a problem. And they've done it before where they've shut down the government, right? Which really had a negative effect on my life, Brent, because we were in Florida and we wanted to visit the Everglades and the park was closed.
Oh.
So I had to go to a cheap alligator farm knockoff, knockoff of the Everglades. No, we didn't realize it. We drive down there.
Sweeping consequences.
Sweeping for the Cricky family anyways. I mean, devastating, you could even say.
Yeah.
I had never been. No, we drive up there and there's no one around. The gate's closed. I'm like, what is going on?
The debt ceiling. Oh, yeah.
Is it because they're closed on Tuesdays? I don't think they close the Everglades on Tuesdays. But it was right at that time. They actually shut the government down. So, I mean, that's one effect. And they got to figure that out. Now, I read the tweet earlier, and I think you read it too, that actually spending from TGA is more... I don't know if you still have the tweet
more
up.
Inflationary or, it lowers your household wealth.
It's more inflationary than just general quantitative easing.
Yeah, you're straight injecting it into the system.
Yeah, it's not goes to the banks.
Is it kind of like taking a vitamin pill versus the injection, the IV drip?
Yeah, but I mean, arguably vitamins are good for you.
Yeah,
and this isn't. Well, I mean, so this is the argument.
Free money is not good for you, Mark?
No.
Okay.
On the face of it.
Would our listeners agree with that statement? Free money is not good for you.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe that if people haven't been listening, this is their first time listening, then go back and listen to the other one. But is free money good for you? Well, because we were just talking about UBI.
Yes.
If Canada, could Canada do that? UBI, Universal Basic Income, is basically the government giving people money for free. That doesn't sound good to you, Mark?
So, there was a clip of Trudeau talking about, he did a press conference.
Can you play this clip or not?
No, I couldn't find the actual one back with those
words.
Couple little words at the end.
Because it was AI generated or something. No. Fake news.
Maybe. I mean, maybe the Prime Minister's AI generated and somebody was
I have seen him in person and he's real.
Oh, yeah. Not a holograph?
Almost walked right over me.
It wasn't somebody like...
No. It was...
Was he on his way to a ski lift?
No, he was on his way out the door into a fancy car.
Okay. Did you heckle him? Or?
This was years ago before.
Okay. You should have.
I was like, who's that guy? Looks familiar.
Anyways, it's okay, Chat GPT, give me the worst possible prime minister you can think of. And that's what we got.
What were we just talking about, though?
We're talking about UBI. So press conference, Trudeau was talking about tariffs. And obviously he's got a little bit of coaching on this because he has some coherent things to say. And maybe we don't agree with them, right? We should engage in diplomacy because when Trump says, I'm going to hit you with a 25% tariff, go talk to the guy or go talk to the State Department or consider his demands. So let's get to the UBI in a sec. But what are their key issues? The key things the U.S. keeps bringing up about Canada And like they're saying it, so maybe let's listen, right? They're telling us
Drugs.
The border safety and migrants,
Yeah.
and drugs, right? Drug production going into the U.S. And like again, they're not making it up. We talked to Sam Cooper. He pointed out the very same things, especially with the fentanyl crisis.
So he's going to tariff the drugs.
No, he's going to tariff other things until we deal with the drugs.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, maybe having a secure border is a good thing for Canada. We should have already done that, right? Maybe having huge fentanyl labs isn't a good thing in our country, and we should do something about it. But no, we can't stop the flood of Chinese cash and fentanyl into our country, which, like, this will be another episode. But the what is it? The United Freedom Front or United Friendship Front? I can't remember anymore. But there's a very opaque organization that funds a lot of Chinese community groups and stuff. And it's straight up funded by the Chinese government. But countless politicians are seen at these fundraisers. And like, we're talking about Carney, we're talking about Freeland, Premier of BC, right? All rubbing shoulders with these guys. And of course, if you're in a majority Chinese riding, right? Like some of the ridings in BC have huge Chinese populations. So of course you're going to court them as a politician. But that doesn't mean you need to court these groups that we know have links to China and Chinese funding and nefarious like cash. Anyways, it drives me nuts. Where we're just, again, it's willful blindness, right?
Yeah.
We see it, it's out there, but we're
Yeah.
just like, nope, it's fine, and we continue to do it.
Yeah.
Anyways, fentanyl into the States. So like these are,
Yeah.
like,
Look at
they
his
should
demands.
be doing this, right? But instead, Trump has to say, well, okay, you're not doing that. And people will argue, like, it's only 1% of drugs into the U.S., or it's only and illegals. Like, number one, you're lying. It's more than that. And number two, like, shut up. Because
very coherent argument.
I don't know, if my kid leaves the bathroom tap on and it overflows and water is starting going to the house, I'm like, there's water all over this house. And they'll be like, well, it's only like 2% of the water in the actual entire house. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
It's like, you've missed the point. So for our own sakes, we should have done this, and we haven't.
Well, yeah,
And
because
now
when
they're
we
saying
talked to
do
Jeff
this.
Nevin about homelessness and housing and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, a big thing is, well, these people just don't have the support. They're on drugs, and like, it's just like, it's one cause that leads to the housing issue, right? The homelessness issue.
Or it exacerbates
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
If somebody is homeless, well, there's plenty of drugs available to numb the pain. So do it. So essentially, they're telling us to clean our room, right? It's always
That
like
sounds Jordan Peterson of you.
Well, he's talking to like young men and women,
Yeah.
right? This is like dealing with toddlers, right? Where it's like,
Okay.
or young kids, like, clean your room, or you don't get dessert, or whatever it is, right? Like, dessert has nothing to do with the state of your room. It's not related, but this is the stick that I can use, and this is the stick that Trump is going to use, is these tariffs. So, like, why don't we just say, you know what? Like Alberta said, we're going to double down on border security, right? People are like, oh, it was an overblown response. Well, overblown compared to what? Exporting no oil? Yeah, let's spend some money on the border. And maybe the Alberta border isn't the problem, but at least that's one spot.
Yeah.
But instead, we're saying, no, we're going to fight back and do tariffs. And that's one maybe valid response. But like, just figure out the key issues that they're telling us to our face. What are the problems? And deal with those, instead of just saying like, oh no, we're going to tariff them. So, Brent, getting to the end of this rant.
I want to talk about UBI.
UBI. So Trudeau had a press conference where he said like, we're going to respond with tariffs, and, if we can substitute.
Wait, wasn't it more like,
There was a lot more, but like, I can't do that many.
Yeah, okay.
I do enough on my own. We will respond dollar for dollar with tariffs, and where we can substitute, and we're going to make it work. And, where we can substitute, like we did it last time, we had Heinz ketchup and we substituted for French's ketchup. It's like, oh, great. So like the great ketchup wars of 2025, you're going to resolve them. Yep. But he acknowledged that tariffs are going to hurt consumers.
Yeah.
Right. And not like, on the stuff that's coming into the country, people are going to have to pay more because there's tariffs. So right at the end of that comment, he said, and we're committed to doing whatever we need to do, even if that includes compensating Canadians for whatever the words were, like the monetary hardship or whatever. I'm like, what? And he said compensate. It's like, what does that mean? So some people have speculated this is about UBI, Universal Basic Income. They've been pushing this for a long time. This would be the perfect opportunity to say, we have an emergency.
So he doesn't want to fix the problem.
I don't think so.
He doesn't want to be diplomatic or do anything to fix the problem. He wants the tariffs to happen, and then he can say, well, actually, we're here to save you from the higher cost of goods and, the economic impacts to your life and your business, and well, here's some free money.
Yeah, because it equates to more control, right?
And
the more you depend on the government.
Why is that free money not good for people? Like if you're the average person going about your work every day, and then somebody says to you, I'm going to give you $500 a month of free money that you don't have to work for. You just have to open this account and you get it. Like, would you not say that's sweet? Yeah,
I mean, generally. So a couple differences here. One is I'm taking a whole bunch of your money, and then I'm going to say, hey, by the way, like, I don't know, maybe I'm the mafia and
it's taxed money.
Well, let's say I'm the mafia and I'm extorting you. You have a store and I'm like, you got to pay me $1,000 a month for protection, right? But then I'll come around and say to all the stores in the neighborhood at some point, like, hey, we're going to give you $25 a month of free money because we're so nice and we love you, right? So essentially what the government's doing. It's not extortion. You can argue that for income tax, but like, where are they getting the money from? And it's worse than that. They don't actually have our money because they've already spent it. So now they're spending my kids' future income tax on these handouts. So number one, it's really bad. Like, it's not reality. It's really bad for our economy. And number two, what you're talking about, you give people free money. Usually people don't make good choices, right? If you don't work for it, you don't appreciate the value of it. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to, right?
More lottery tickets purchased.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of studies done on this. And yes, some people use the money and make good decisions and like better their lot in life. And it's usually like low income people who are targeted.
I like the one, this is a Scandinavian study where they did UBI for a while. And they said of the people that received the UBI, they were happier than the general population. It's like, that's because it's not UBI, it's just BI. It's like there's no universal. Like it's selected basic income. It's like you are the chosen group and you get the universal basic income and no one else does. Turns out they were happier than everybody.
I mean, I would also be happier, right? I mean, look, I'm happy when the baby bonus comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, now, do we need that? No, but I'm not going to.
Well, you need it now that everybody else is getting it. Inflation goes up.
Yeah. I mean, there's your argument.
And we have this thing snowball locally here in St. Catharines where people get a grant to build an ADU. And, people are kind of astounded. Actually, the biggest question we get is, hey, can I do this and then insert jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Like, can I do this in this city? It's like, no, it's not for that jurisdiction. But, I mean, if you ask long enough, you probably get it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But all this free money coming out in a grant and the house prices go up, right? Or like, does that?
Yeah, but you don't think of that, right?
Oh, man.
And I mean, if you're getting it, that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to get free money to build something.
So when you talked out earlier about like reallocation of wealth or redistribution of wealth, this is a small micro example of that, right? Like you're taking from the coffers of the country. I guess in this case, it's federal money that goes down to, ends up in the municipality, and they say, okay, well, we have this problem with housing. We're going to choose to address it by giving a grant, and here's $80,000 or $40,000. Like, depends on what you qualify for, right? But $80,000 is not a small amount of money. Right? Like, what's the average Canadian salary?
It's less than that.
Yeah, it's like 65,
68
70.
or something.
Yeah. So, take an entire year's salary of the average person in Canada and give it to this guy because he built a little thing in his backyard.
Yeah.
That, is supposed to be housing one more household unit, right? Like family unit.
Yeah.
So you're redistributing the wealth from, now he owns that. Now his property's worth more. He can collect rent. Like, so now you take advantage of it. I don't know.
Well, and now all his neighbors' properties go up in value.
Yeah.
Because there's this possibility that you can increase the value.
Yeah. So all that jurisdiction, that wherever you can get this grant, like maybe your property value goes up 10, 20, 30 grand, depending on what the potential of your property is and the likelihood of getting one of these things approved. But
well, and then add to that the proposed new, up to $80,000 low interest loan for adding an ADU or a secondary dwelling unit. So
that's second and third order effects of giving away free money. Well, it's not free money, but giving away money. You're taking money from one group, giving it to the other. So I don't know. We have this conundrum, right? Because as Christians, like, I don't think redistributing wealth in that kind of manner where you're basically taking and giving it, I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me. But like,
it doesn't. But you can't
stewarding in the system that we have.
You have to work on the level that you're at, right? If this is available, I think you take advantage of it because it's. And people say that was a bad argument, but like it's going to be spent. It's going to be put out there.
Well, because in our circles, a lot of Dutch people, it's like, oh, look, all these ADUs are being built. They're all Dutch people. They're all cheap. Like, got money. Yeah, sweet.
Well, I mean, what if you can? So, I mean, this is the argument about real estate that people have, right? That it's immoral to make money off of real estate because it's a need. Shelter is a need. And okay, so that's one argument. And if you're really convinced of that, then fine. Like, don't get into it. But the other argument is like identify trends and work within the level that you're on and the resources that you have available, because you're not going to change the large mega trend. You're not going to stop the government from handing out these $40,000 grants for building more housing. And at the end of the day, you are building housing. So you're doing something good, and there's second order effects.
They're giving the money for a reason, right? They want to create the housing. Okay.
Yeah, and there's second order effects, but do you ignore them? Like, what's the line, right? Do you ignore them because they're bad, or not? Do you just build the thing anyways and not take the grant? Is that stewardly? Like, that just seems dumb, right? We're also called to be shrewd and wise managers of money, and so I would lean towards like, take the grant, take the low interest loan, and do something useful with that, and not so that you can have a cash room or a vault or whatever, where like Scrooge McDuck, right, where you just hoard your money. Like, do something useful with it, but also doing something useful doesn't always have to. That doesn't just mean giving it to other people who don't have any, right? It can include that, but also just like do something, be a good steward, do something useful with the resources you have.
Even if it's universal basic income.
Well, that's the thing, right? Everybody I know collects baby bonus if they qualify for it. And I think everybody qualifies at some level for it, right? If you have a bunch of kids. And it helps out. And so that one is kind of accepted as like, that's fine, because it promotes a good cause, right? Having larger families. But, the same argument, right? Should we just not take it? Because we know what, like, it adds to inflation, because it's money the government doesn't really have.
And they're giving it away.
It away. But you see other jurisdictions like Hungary, if you have 4 kids or more, you will not pay income tax. They want to really foster family formation. And I don't know what the rules, I don't think it's like you can have 4 kids with 4 different women. But if you have a family with 4 children within that unit, then you will be exempt from income tax, right? And it's like a sliding scale.
They know that if you have 4 kids, you're not going to work anyways. Turns out they didn't have the time to even do their taxes.
Well, no, but what does that do? That means, like, okay, so no income tax. So maybe you can get by on one income.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't need the mother to be out there earning income as well, which is always the argument.
If you're paying 50% tax, you probably can.
Yeah. So in that case, like, do you disagree with it? Like, I think no. You work on the level that you're at, and you be like, okay, fine, I will take advantage of these policies, and I will accept the no income tax.
Yeah, I guess with universal basic income, I guess the one thing that I keep thinking of is like, okay, bring it on, but if you're going to bring it on, like, we want to be prepared for that. And if they can print money and give it to everybody, first maybe it's $400 a month or $500 a month, and it's $10,000 a month in 20 years from now. And if they can do that, then, own something that they can't make. Like own a hard asset, own something that they can't make a lot of really quick and give it to everybody. So go around the world, look for something that's fixed supply or low supply and in demand and cannot be easily produced. And I don't know. I don't think universal basic income is a good idea, but if it were to happen, that would be an approach that you could take to kind of combat it or be prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few you could get into politics.
Because why do you need universal basic income? Because everything's too expensive for you to afford.
Yeah.
Right? So do you think once everybody else gets the same amount of money you did, like you're going to have more money than, like, it's just going to be turns out inflation's skyrocketing. I just love to see the country that fully embraces universal basic income.
Well, okay, so we say that, but it depends on where that money's coming from. Yeah. Right? You could argue against it's good or it's bad. We can say, like, if you're pulling it out of a hat, if you're inventing the money, that's bad. If you're like Norway and you have a sovereign wealth fund, or like Alaska, for example, they have, I can't remember what the fund is, but they have a fund based on natural resource exploitation that they get royalties from. And then every citizen in Alaska gets a check every year that's actually based on real money. Right? Maybe it's $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is, but they all benefit from it, right? Norway underwrites a lot of the costs of their social programs from their sovereign wealth fund. So in that case, like, that's the money that exists. Now you can argue, is this a bad use of this money? And you can have that debate. But at the very least, like, the basis of it is in reality. There's money that exists.
Yeah.
How do you spend it? Okay, fine. But when you have money that doesn't exist and you're spending it, that's like clearly a clown show. And then you talk about inflation. Clearly it's going to drive inflation and actually make things worse for the people you're purporting to help. Interesting note I saw the inflation numbers came out and inflation's dropping.
Oh, really?
And it's interesting, right? Some little clarity on this GST tax holiday. A lot of the things, most of the things that were included in the GST break, which is on until February 15th, are part of the basket of goods that determines
in the
CPI that determines inflation. So,
is that why it was so complex to determine which things were included in the GST? They just literally took a copy paste of the CPI basket, and they're like, "These are the things that will impact inflation. So why don't we stop taxing those, and they'll go down in price?"
Oh man, and they're trumpeting this, like, inflation's down, and a big reason is because of the GST break. So. I mean, my response is, okay, great. Then just eliminate it.
Yeah, eliminate
and inflation will keep dropping. Yeah. Like, if you're that smart, never mind your revenues dropping. But like, clearly just a political move. And like, I didn't cotton on to that at all until these numbers came out, and it's like, oh, okay, that all makes a little more sense now, right?
Yeah.
The inflation has dropped. Oh man, good job, guys. Good job. Okay, I think we should maybe wrap up there, Brent. I'm exhausted from all this gesticulating and yelling at people. But, well, okay, no, I'm not. Sorry, I lied.
One more thing?
One more thing.
I was just waiting
just on the,
to say steward your wealth wisely.
Yeah, sorry.
We're out of here.
Brent.
Shoot.
It's like Columbo, for anybody who's ever watched TV from the 60s, right? Oh, one more thing. It was Peter Falk. He was a detective, and that was his line, right? He was always in like a fedora and a beige trench coat, and he would, have this disarming way of interviewing people, right? They think he was kind of a bumbling fool, but really he was smart.
Yeah.
But he would always do the interview with the suspect or the person, and then as he was leaving, he would turn around and he'd be like, "Oh, one more thing." Just like, he was absent-minded guy, but this was actually the real thing that he wanted to get the information on, and people would just be like, "Oh, it's an afterthought."
All right, so now I'm thinking it's an afterthought, but it could be the real reason you started this podcast.
Exactly.
All right.
And you don't know. Am I a bumbling fool or am I a genius in a trench coat?
I mean, I'm not going to tell you my assumption, but Okay. Hit us with the news.
Let's do a poll, okay? We'll put a poll out there. Bumbling fool or latent genius? No, they've eliminated EV mandates, electric vehicle mandates.
Oh.
So anything that the federal government was involved in subsidizing around electric vehicles, they're like, nope, done. So interesting on a few levels, right? Elon Musk is like in neck deep with Trump, right? Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. Like this is going to affect him because this was his business model. It wasn't building electric vehicles. It was getting subsidies for some kind of consumer good. So, I mean, I'm sure he doesn't care. He's got enough money and they're going to keep making Teslas. But, yeah, that's huge, right? That kind of kills the EV market in the States because it was not competitive really. And we just in Canada actually announced the end of the $5,000 EV rebate, which was like a bit of a head scratcher for me. I don't know if they were front running this or what the deal was, or they just realized like, we got no money. But yeah, $50 billion of investment that Canada made. And I say investment very loosely, right? Money that was given in grants and loans and stuff to EV, like battery manufacturers and people involved in electric vehicles, like. That's all gone. It's out the window, right? All these investments are like Trump has just killed that. And could have seen that coming, I think. But of course we didn't because we don't plan ahead in Canada. But yeah, EVs. Is this the death of EVs? I don't know. People will still buy Teslas, I think. But a lot of the
There's a new Tesla store open in Hamilton. Like huge.
At the mall,
Canada's biggest Tesla store or something like that.
Is it?
Yeah,
I've been by there at Lime Ridge a few times.
It's like the Mecca
go in.
of Tesla. Like, haven't you just noticed so many Teslas or cars on the road?
I have.
EVs? Really?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stalled on the side, kind of like.
I mean, the odd one here and there.
We should have like a guy who owns a Tesla or an electric car on to just rip us apart and like why Teslas are so good. But
well, but again,
I'm more like the analog. You know, I want no lane assist. I like power windows, okay, and heated seats, but like all this other stuff, like I don't want them to know where I'm driving.
After the apocalypse, it's going to be people driving like Ladas and Yugos with like the hand crank windows and just like a key that makes a spark physically on a wire, and that makes a spark in the engine, right? Like those are the cars we're gonna have left after
no external combustion, just
after
internal
EMP
combustion
goes off. Yeah. So we will see. But yeah, is this the end of electric cars? I don't think it's the end, but it's going to slow down the growth for sure because most of the growth was artificial, stimulated by the government, and that seems to be gone. And I mean, so I can see a lot of this. A lot of the things we've talked about also happening in Canada. And, I mean, yeah, there's, I mean, we didn't even talk about the border and the border emergency, but immediate action being taken. But, yeah, what's going to happen in Canada? I think a lot of the same stuff. And hopefully we declare energy crisis in Canada and, like, just invoke some powers to get some refineries and some pipelines built. And, that will actually be a better form of universal basic income. Like there's money there. You just have to go and work for it. Okay. But it's actually, there are opportunities available in Canada if you want to work. And if you're part of
it's more like universal hard earned income.
UHI. Yeah. I like that. Okay. We're going to put that on a shirt.
All right.
It's there. You just have to go to work.
Yeah.
And I mean, hopefully all the people who have their basket weaving and woke diversity degrees that will be unemployed soon, figure out like, I can go work in the oil field, or I can
start a podcast,
work on a rig.
Great source of income.
Hold on, we got to talk about this because I haven't seen any of that.
Universal hard-earned what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, go take a risk, right? Do something that doesn't involve the government backing you. Anyways, if you're in the government and you have information on how you can back our podcast, please contact us. Because we'll take advantage of it. But thank you for listening so far, folks. Until next time.
Steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.